Hi, Cancer Sun and Rising. Welcome to your December 2024 Astro Update. It's Rena here. And December is a month where Sag is front and center as the sun sign. And this is happening for the first 3 weeks of the month. So, for Cancer individuals, this is a very practical area of life, otherwise known as the sixth house of work and health and your daily routine, or what we would say your schedule, how you manage or order your time. And so, like on the first of the month, we have a new moon in this sector at 9 degrees of Sagittarius. Now, it's important to note that if you're listening in November, and I'm recording this on the 15th, there is a Mercury retrograde occurring on the 25th of November at 22 degrees of Sagittarius, and that is going to also be there as the month begins and as the new moon is in this house. So, for instance, there may be new developments with a job. If you're like looking for work and you're in between jobs, you might get something, a glimmer of hope. But actually, I was noticing that Mercury goes direct in mid-month. So my feeling is that it's going to be more the case that it's because Mercury is going to go direct at 6 degrees of Sag. This new moon is at 9 degrees. So my feeling is that after Mercury goes direct in like several days or whatever after it, it won't come out of its shadow until January. But the point is that when it is around the same degree as the new moon, that might be more the time that these sixth house triggers are felt, because we're still dealing with a personal plant that's retrograde in this house, and there might be delays. But it's like it's one of those things where you might just kind of forget about it, like you sent a resume somewhere and then you hear back from them later and like, wow. And it's because it was delayed a little bit. So anything that is not flowing perfectly in this area, and this can also be, I feel like this could even be like you're negotiating something with your workplace, or you're rethinking your workplace. Maybe you're dissatisfied with something, but you haven't made a final decision about whether or not you want to actually quit altogether. Um, I think that the new year may give you more clarity. And even as we go into the second half of December, but I'm looking at it also because this is the holiday season and it's a little bit hectic. People, as it is, and people aren't really focused on a lot of the things that they're supposed to be. So this is more of one of those kinds of situations. On the 6th, Mars goes retrograde at 6 degrees of Leo. This is really important for you, Cancer, because Mars is going to be here for months at a time, but also in your sign when it goes back there. I'm pretty sure it's going to go back there in January. I can't remember the exact date, but I think it'll stay in Leo. Yeah, it is staying in Leo all month long. And so, of course, it's going to be in your sign when it goes back into Cancer. But when it's in the second house, and so as I'm recording this in November, and then well into the first week of December, you have Mars direct. And when Mars is in the second house, it is very aggressive, or what I would say like hustling, a sense of urgency. And again, this is the time when, eh, as I'm recording this, it's not exactly holiday season, but it is a month before, and it seems like every year it's a little bit different, but some years it seems like people are more eager to celebrate. And this is one of those years where people just are doing everything prematurely. Um, so the bottom line is it could be as simple as you want to have more money for gifts, or you want to go on some kind of vacation after Christmas or whatever. Who knows? But the point is that you want this money. And when Mars goes retrograde on the 6th, it is basically stopping the direct flow. So it's kind of like circling back. And one of the ways that this transpires is to make a person more introspective and focusing on the self. And actually, that's one of the best things that a person can do during a retrograde, because we're not always like putting things out there and promoting. It's also about going within and really like getting clear, connecting with yourself about what it is that you want and why you want it. And on a more mundane level, you might find that you're thwarted. Like if when Mars is in the 6th house, a person might be very ambitious to try and get a certain position or achieve something in the workplace. They might be very competitive, but it's not necessarily a good thing all the time. But even, if it's not something that's toxic, even if it's something positive, you might be prevented from doing it because there are other factors. Maybe here's one thing. Mars, when Mars is in a house, it energizes that area of life. So it actually can have, even though it can sometimes bring drama, conflict, and things like that, there can be where there's energizing. And what that means is that the person, if it's in the 6th house, it's like you have this force of nature inside of yourself that is able to work long hours. And you may have that desire to do so. And yet, what if you get your hours cut? I remember when I got my hours cut where I was working, it was right before Christmas, because they have like I guess it has to do with their budget for the next year or something like that. And that was, I still worked there for, um, you know, 8 more months or something like that. No, yeah, 8 more months. But it was never the same again. And I really did feel that, it was, I don't know about vindictive, but there was something about it that I didn't sit well with me. And I, I feel like, if you have any like conflicts with coworkers, just realize that right now, since I'm telling you this like way in advance, because if you're listening in November, obviously, because maybe you can head it off at the pass, and maybe all the conflict is from some kind of a supervisor who doesn't know how to be a good boss, trying to motivate people in a negative way. But you don't have to, um, you can stay above the fray. You don't have to participate at that level. And sometimes people don't realize that they have options. They can choose to be more um, cooperative and, how I would put it, caring about others. And I think Cancer people tend to be very caring about other people. You may be ambitious, but you still care about other people. So keep that in mind, that all of these, it's kind of like awfulizing situations. It doesn't have to get to that point. And I'm not going to talk about the when Mars goes retrograde in Cancer because that's not happening right now. I might make a separate video on these. We'll see. But I'll focus on it for the January reading. On the 7th of the month, Neptune goes direct at 27 degrees of Pisces, and Venus goes into Aquarius. I just want to say one more thing about Mars retrograde is that people can feel frustrated and that can lead to anger. Mars can be the way that we express anger, that we handle anger. Anger is just an energy. And some people like to point out the word emotion. It's like emotion. It's like it's some kind of energy that involves action. And we don't have to look at it in a negative way as, oh, this is something that's going to be so bad for me. I'm not going to be able to get along with people if I express anger. No, it's all how you do it. And when Mars is retrograde, I do think that it can be very there's a lot of frustration that leads to kind of like that being short with others. And it'll be a lot of fun when it goes back into Cancer, let me tell you, because Cancer is a water sign and it already has this hypersensitivity. I heard another astrologer, I think, talking about this before when Mars went into Cancer, and I did notice when I was out and about when Mars was in Cancer that people were kind of, ready to be, very defensive. And this kind of thing is, we don't want to fan the flames, let's put it that way. So be aware that other people may be on edge themselves, and let's look out for one another. So like I said, the very next day on the 7th, Neptune turns direct at 27 degrees of Pisces. Well, Pisces is your fellow water sign. It trines you, wonderful aspect, and it's coming from the 9th house, which is the house of Sagittarius in astrology, where that the new moon energy in that you have, but you have it in the 6th house. So we're talking about the 9th house, and it has an expansive quality. And it's also the God house. So one thing that, since you've been having Neptune in this sector for years on end, and of course this is a general reading, but I suspect that even it's at 27 degrees, so I suspect that a lot of you have had this for years in this house. Neptune in the 9th house can provide mystical embodiment. I don't know how else to put. Well, no, that I don't know if I should say embodiment, but Neptune is the ruler of the 12th house under the sign of Pisces, and it is otherworldly. The 9th house to me is more mainstream, like organized religion types of belief systems. So when you add Neptune to the mix, it can create a personal relationship that you have with a deity, a religious figure that we associate with a particular religion. So let's say you are Catholic and or even if you're not from that religion, but you have like a vision of that deity, that can be very inspirational to you. It can like deepen your religious beliefs. Or you may just start turning more mystical rather than religious. But Neptune has been retrograding for months, so there may have been disillusionment. People have to be careful when Neptune is transiting their ninth house that they do not fall under the sway of a cult or some kind of, cult leader, because this could be like the guru, the person who is kind of leading others in their cult. But, people joke and say the definition of a cult is someone else's religion or belief system. And that can be true because some people are very intolerant of other people's beliefs. But in case you're not like that, I would say that perhaps there was some kind of disillusionment, and it could simply be some kind of religious group or um, path that you were following, even with a religion you have had your whole life. Perhaps there was some kind of an event this past summer or around the time of, it was like early July when Neptune went retrograde, and that was like a reality check. Because, see, this is the thing about it. It isn't just about a transit in the ninth house, it's about Neptune. Because Neptune symbolizes deception sometimes. It also symbolizes idealism. But sometimes those two things work together, and you get, because of your idealism, you get deceived by somebody who is trying to sell you utopia or nirvana. And, when there's not like this acknowledgement that we are still in this world, suffering is inevitable, but we don't have to make that front and center in our life. We don't have to suffer continuously. There might be times when we're, really struggling with something, and even if we have a very strong faith, we still suffer because we love somebody who dies, or, we have some setback. We don't want to be engaging in religious bypassing or spiritual bypassing, where it's like good vibes only, because there are some times when bad things happen, and in order to integrate the negative things in life, we have to be willing to face them and to feel them, right? Okay, that's my 2 cents. I don't mean to indoctrinate or try to lecture other people, but I'm a Sagittarius, so I'm kind of preachy anyway, and very opinionated. But this is just my opinion, obviously. So now that Neptune is direct, you don't have to feel jaded anymore. You might have gathered more information, and you're able to continue to explore the mystical side of the maybe the practical spiritual path. On the same day, Venus goes into Aquarius, and this is your eighth house. So Venus in the eighth house can be gaining financial reward from others. If you are married or otherwise coupled, this could be your partner getting a raise. Venus can be money. So in the eighth house, your partner could be getting a raise, and that benefits you by virtue of being with that person. This can be the eighth house is the house of intimacy, and people think of intimacy as a euphemism for sex, While it can, while it can be that, to me, ultimately, it's the emotional intimacy and the bonding with somebody at a deep level. And this could be what you're doing. But it could be benefiting from inheritance, or if you're getting divorced, it could be, divorce proceedings, stocks. On the 15th, we have a full moon at 23 degrees of Gemini. And on the same day, Mercury goes direct at 6 degrees of Sagittarius. Gemini, well, first of all, that Mercury direct, that's kind of making everything more, whatchamacallit, settled in your area of work. So you should start to see things kind of become more flowing, straightforward, and not prone to delays. On the same day, the full moon at 23 degrees of Gemini is falling in your 12th house. This is the house of Pisces. This is what I was just talking about when I was talking about that ninth house. There's almost like that. I was going to say mutual reception, but it's not on the same date. But this idea of this full moon in the 12th house, it really represents that Piscean influence. And I was talking about Neptune being in the ninth house. It's not really mutual reception, but it's kind of like connected in some way. So anyway, the 12th house is the house of your self-undoing. This is the house of self-undoing. Self-undoing is self-destructive habits. We all know the big ones like a drug addiction or an alcohol addiction. And people can see how that can destroy lives. But there are other things that might not be as blatantly destructive that still trip you up, hold you back, keep you from achieving what you're meant to achieve. So the full moon can draw this up and help you to release it. Also, this is the house of hidden enemies. So this may come up, but full moons can bring things into the light and can, and because of that, it's known for exposing secrets. And even though this is in the 12th house, I'm thinking about the Mars in the 6th house, because 6th house can be co-workers and Mars can be, conflict with co-workers in the 6th house. However, even with conflict, there can be somebody that is not readily apparent who's behind the scenes pulling the strings. In that scenario, it could be a boss who's trying to play both sides. That's called triangulation. Narcissistic personalities do this in order to seem like they're like smelling like a rose. Everybody else is fighting, but they're sitting there with their feet propped up on the desk, watching everybody else fight. So they gain more control over these social situations. But a boss may use it to try to get more out of an employee by getting the employees to compete with one another, to want to outdo one another. Then it makes them more productive. And I'm putting that in air quotes because really productivity, like everything else in life, can't be measured just by some kind of statistic, because you have to look at morale. Because you might, for a short time, be able to get somebody to work harder because you're manipulating them to do so. But over the long haul, what kind of damage does it do to the workplace? to get people to be competing with one another like that. So it could be that the 12th house is the dream state. So your dreams could be much more prophetic, psychic. Full moons are times of great psychic activity, hence why there's almost like that kind of that cliche about the witch and you know, the crystal ball and all of that kind of thing, because they're trying to tap into the time when there's a lot more psychic activity and ability to harness that. On the 21st, we have the winter solstice in the northern hemisphere. The sun is going into Capricorn, which is very powerful because it's a cardinal sign, and that can mean that things are very active, activated, that there's a lot of, change, potential for change. And this will fall, the sun is going into your opposite sign. The opposite house is the seventh house of committed partnership. So you may see that there is this emphasis as we close out 2024. And actually, on the 29th, if you're on the West Coast, and 30th elsewhere, there's a black moon, second new moon in the month at 9 degrees of Capricorn. The black moon is a time to really harness the manifestation powers of this area of life. And that means that if you're a Cancer person who is single and you want to get married, declare it. Go for, why not go for broke? Be bold. And it's not to say I want to be married by, this time next year, because that would only be 1 year. Might not be very smart, might be smart to be old fashioned like you tend to be and just have a long courting process. That's how they used to call it courting, but I would call it vetting in 2024. But anyway, the seventh house is also legal affairs, and it's also public relations. Oh, and that reminds me, speaking of public relations, that Pluto has finally exited this house. If you're listening in November, it's officially happening on the 19th of November. So because of this, there are some people who will notice that they have better reception by others, because Pluto is a heavy, and even if it gives a person gravitas, there can always be this kind of nervousness that comes from others, like with the idea of Pluto representing the control or power, and you may have felt this need to appear that way. And it was in earth energy, which is dense. Now it's in air, it's light as a feather, and you may feel a lot more like you want to be seen in a more gregarious or social way, which I wouldn't say Aquarius is gregarious, but at least it's social and broad-minded and things like that. So that may improve your public relations, actually. But anyway, the actual black moon is falling in that seventh house, so be sure that you set your intentions about what it is that you want. But also, if you are already coupled, maybe you can start a new chapter in your relationship, or you will be. An example would be a couple, they retire. So now or one person retires and that person's hanging around the house all the time. That's going to change the dynamics of the relationship. The other person might have been complaining that they never got to see their partner, and all of a sudden that person will never leave. It's like you have to force them to take a walk or to do something. So it really can affect relationships, but it can be positive for sure. You might be taking things in a new direction. All right, that's what or maybe you're making wedding plans, you're getting married, or planning to cohabitate. That's what I have for you. I hope that this resonated, Cancer. If you would like a private reading, I'm promoting my double readings. I have a deep dive reading, an hour of natal chart analysis, an hour of transits through the end of 2025 for a special price. I have that plus a full-length tarot reading if you like the tarot, called the Whole Enchilada. And I have another package deal plus individual readings for career, love, etc. You can find out more information at the link below. Thanks for listening. Bye.